Hello, I'm Don Geiger. I just introduced the new Evolution system, and I'd like to show you today how to do the installation. This system is extremely simple and inexpensive, and it's designed to give highly repeatable and accurate grinds. Let's get started with this system. You will need the standard Wolverine setup, which is the receiver with the standard V-notch. So in addition to a standard Wolverine receiver and V-notch, you will need a jig to hold your gouges. Either the Wolverine Vari-Grind or an Ellsworth jig. The Ellsworth jig currently comes in a round model, which I don't have. But you could use a square one if you have it, or you can use the new round one. Let's open up the kit. Let me show you what you will receive. Alright, inside the bag, we've got a preset gauge for the Vari-Grind. We've got a 60-degree gauge that has a 60-degree hollow grind on the end with a smooth facet on the top so that it mimics a gouge when it's held in a jig. It's got a gauge block that is marked on 3 different sides. And there's a stop to be put on the arm of the Wolverine with the wrench. Also included is my business card if you need to ask me any questions. You can also get on my website. This address is on there. This needs to be taped to the motor of your grinder so you can use it as a reference for the Ellsworth grind. This is a drawing by David, and I did a few little enhancements on it. Here are the instructions, the written instructions. And on the reverse side of the written instructions, the first thing it'll tell you is how to use the preset gauge. It's really important that this arm be set at a specific position in order to get the results that we're after. First thing you do is you loosen this arm. You put the face of the jig so that the wing nut is facing upward and you have accessibility to it. Move the arm over against this wall and tighten it securely. You've now preset the position of this before we move on further. Obviously, with the Ellsworth style jig, the arm is not adjustable, so we don't have to go through that. First thing you got to do is pull the Wolverine V-notch arm out. I've shortened mine to make it convenient for traveling. Take the stop, slide it over the Wolverine arm. Don't tighten the set screw yet until we move on further in the installation. Put this back inside the receiver and leave it. The next thing is we want to have the gouge and the 60-degree gauge always set it with a 2-inch extension beyond the end of the jig. So I've drilled a hole in here that's just slightly over 2 inches, and I've glued a dime in the back to keep it from wearing more deeply. I used a little depth gauge like this to determine what that exact depth was, and it's right on 2 inches. If you've got other mechanisms to produce different depths, you're going to get a different grind than what I'm recommending, so please follow the 2-inch recommendation. The degree gauge, as I mentioned earlier, is designed to fit directly into your jig. Once it's in the jig, set the 2-inch extension. Tighten this knob so that now we have a 2-inch extension out of the front of the jig with the gauge, and that's what we'll do later with the gouges. Once that's set, rest the stem of your Vari-Grind jig into the V-notch. Move your V-notch until you get an exact match with the hollow grind that's on the end of the 60-degree gauge and the curvature of your wheel. This system is really ideal for use with CBN wheels because CBN wheels do not change in diameter. These aggregate type wheels, over quite some time, will actually get smaller in diameter as you dress them. With a CBN wheel, it's not necessary to reset this at any time once you've done it once. So this is a gauge block, and it's marked with on three different sides. You got the Ellsworth, the relief, and micro bevel. At 60 degree, in the 60 degree position, which we just set, we want to use the Ellsworth. So we set the Ellsworth in here. We bring it up, the stop collar up against it, tighten this in, and tighten it securely because we're not going to change this again. So that's nice and secure. So anytime that I want to reproduce the position for the Ellsworth, I'll slide that stop collar against this block when it says Ellsworth here. So now I've got a deep fluted bowl gouge, this 5/8 OD. I'm going to put it in my vary grind, just like I did with the 60 degree gauge. And I'm going to set the extension exactly the same as I did on the 60 degree, so I'll get repeatability. Then I rest the stem of the vary grind into the V-notch, and I proceed to shape and sharpen the tool. And the very first time you may have to do a little bit of extra grinding to get it to conform, but from then on it'll be highly repeatable. Here are a couple different variations on the Ellsworth grind. You'll notice this one here has a longer, straighter edge on it, so it's swept back a little bit further. And the further you come back, the flatter this gets. What you don't want is to end up with a concave edge on there like this. Okay? Then this one is a little bit shorter, didn't come back as far, and it gave us the opportunity to have a little bit of a positive curvature here. Some of that is a function of the shape of the flute. You always want a parabolic flute if you want to get a direct representation of the Ellsworth grind. But on this one, you can see we've got a real nice curve which resembles this very closely. We're gonna now sharpen the micro bevel gouge, and we're gonna produce the micro bevel first. Here's the side that says micro bevel. Don't move this. Move the whole arm and put this in place. Push against it and lock it in. We're now in the position to produce the micro bevel. As always, we want to set the 2-inch extension. So every gouge that we do, we have a 2-inch extension. But now go in and sharpen the micro bevel. And the micro bevel is just this tiny little part at the top. It's about maybe 1/8 of an inch wide. Some people use it even less, smaller. So once the micro bevel has been successfully produced or sharpened, then we need to do the secondary bevel, which is called a relief grind. Again, don't mess with the stop collar, just change the position to V-notch and push against the gauge block where it says relief. Now we go in and we just work on producing or maintaining the secondary bevel. And you can use that secondary bevel grind to adjust the width of this primary bevel if you want. That's the way I like to do it. This is a micro bevel grind on an identical bowl gouge. Notice that there's a primary bevel here that's supporting the cutting edge, and then there's a secondary bevel behind it which provides relief, which will not come into contact with your wood. This micro bevel is sharpened at about 70 degrees. The important thing is that it's steeper than the 60, and it gives you a more perpendicular position to the face of the wood. Now we're going to sharpen the spindle gouge. So we put it back in the same holder. We set the 2-inch extension, the same as all the other gouges. We loosen the cam handle, push that all the way up against the receiver, lock it in, Now I can produce that spindle gouge sharpened at about 40 degrees. It's a shallow flute. The tip will be about like this, or a little bit more rounded. So basically what we've done is, with the use of this gauge block, we can be at the Ellsworth position, we can be at the micro bevel position, we can be at the relief grind position, or we can be at the spindle gouge position. Each one of these is highly reproducible and can be easily done in just a few minutes.